From an engineer who briefly floated in the seas of the corporate world to the visionary who excelled in the startup universe, Krishna developed the art of building, experimenting, and rebuilding. This artistry helped him establish himself as the pioneer in the world of professional upskilling. Krishna is a landmine of stories, experiences, and insights. And he believes everyone has a story. On Simplilearn's very own homegrown podcast, As Simple as That, Krishna will be donning the hat of a podcaster, conversing with learners, industry leaders, business partners, and anyone who has insights to share. In this episode, Krishna will be chatting up with Simplilearn learner Mohamed Asfar Hameed, who has quite an interesting story. An aerospace engineer who started off as an aviation security officer, Asfar switched tracks to get into the clothing business, later dabbling in crypto trading, and then finally soaring into the skies of data analytics. In this conversation, he shares all about his journey so far and some really interesting insights. So, let's dive right in.
Welcome to As Simple as That. So today I'm happy to welcome Asfar. Asfar has been an aeronautical engineer, an entrepreneur, as well as a data scientist. He's still very young, so we are going to talk about his story on how it all started and how he played various roles. But before we get deep into his story, let's first meet who Asfar is. So Asfar, thank you for coming on this show. Please help us understand our audience about your family background, where did you grow up, and what made you make various decisions that you have made in life. And then we'll go deeper into each of the aspects of your life.
Yeah, thank you, Krishna. Thanks for having me here and nice to meet you. I come from a small town called Kilakarai in Tamil Nadu. And from there, my family migrated to Chennai and we were living this past 20, 30 years in Chennai. To give a background about myself, I always have this passion about aeroplanes, rockets, and all these things. So that's the reason I chosen aeronautical engineer as part of my undergraduate. But it never goes off like how you plan usually. So after finishing my aeronautical engineer, I was working with Jet Airways, which was, though it is an airline, but it was not technical like what I've studied in aeronautical. And post that, I was not interested because there were certain things I was only doing the same things repeatedly, which I was not allowing myself to do. So I shifted my thinking towards being an entrepreneur because that time entrepreneurship was booming and people had few ideas which can turn into greater future as well. So as I went into entrepreneurship, like I started my own clothing brand at first, pre-pandemic. So once that pandemic happened, again, things went down the hill. Our business, where it took skyrocket, it came back again, how the landing happens in the rocket usually. So in that case, I was experimenting things like what to do next, what to do here and there. And I shifted my focus towards construction materials. So they were huge demand post the pandemic. So I took this would be a nice opportunity to get myself into something. So when I got into this business, that time I understood data would be a huge impact which would get into any business, and whoever is using data to their business might have an upper hand with whatever the competitors they are competing with. So I thought, okay, let's get experimental in this. And when I was searching in the internet, the first thing which came to my mind was Simplilearn, because they were giving this kind of an opportunity where you get to learn what people are doing in terms of data in real industrial scenario. I was too curious because I was not too old to experiment myself. I was in a good age. Even if things go as not as expected, I always have this experience to things to handle in a way I wanted it. I enrolled in Simplilearn, and the first 2 weeks of the program when it was started, the way I look into data, it had an impact on myself. Practical experience is also required, wherein I'm really thankful that Simplilearn gave me an opportunity wherein we were able to work on projects which was happening in real life.
So what is your current situation, Ashwar? Are you working in the construction business or you're working as a data scientist somewhere full time? What's your current role?
Okay, I do have my business running, but it's not me who is looking into right now. I have people at my family who is looking into that, wherein I want myself turned to be a data scientist on a full term. So I'm currently working with organization called Kaiser Consulting, which is basically a data analytical firm. We do have projects across the world on the data part, especially.
Got it. So, Ashwar, you told me so many different things that you did, and it's really amazing to hear your story. And I have a lot of questions and doubts related to that. I'm sure the audience will also have similar questions, and of course, we'll give them an opportunity to ask once we post these videos. But some things that I want to understand. See, if you look at a typical middle class background that you belong to, you grew up in a small Tamil Nadu, maybe town, and moved to Chennai, which is the capital of Tamil Nadu. And a lot of people do this, right? In fact, it happened with me also. I grew up in a village, then eventually moved to Patna, and then my family was there. And then typically when people move from a small town to a bigger city, that itself is a big change. So once you completed your aeronautical engineering, you got first job as a database person, right? But in an airline company, which you didn't like. And then you went to two businesses back to back, right? Garment, or say what we call clothing line, and construction. But how did you decide to move from clothing, which is one different business, to a construction, which is a very different business? Like what made you make this change? And also the related question that typically people from middle class background whose parents has been professional, they don't experiment with business. It's considered to be a very risky proposition. So how did you convince your family? And in spite of having in a way bad experience, not because of you, but because of the market scenarios of COVID hitting, how did they again allow you to get into construction?
Absolutely, you're right, Krishna. So at the beginning, I usually try to analyze my risk in terms of whatever I'm doing. So there is something people, they usually try until you succeed in one business or something like that. But it doesn't happen in a real way, because you'll have to have a lot of capital in order to try and try. So I thought during pandemic, all the constructions was shut down and there was nothing happening throughout the country. So I thought this would be an opportunity which would open up certain new businesses, because what I realized was I Googled a few dealers within India and then understood their kind of reality, like what they are going through, because those people are manufacturers who had huge capitals within there and they have to sell it somehow because they have put in a lot of investments in there. So that was a kind of an opening wherein I was able to tie up with those manufacturers and were able to supply them, though it is pandemic. That gave me upper hand from clothing towards the construction. And also, as you said, people usually, your family, they never allow to kind of experiment things from this to that, because at least you'll have to prove yourself in one thing. Without that, you cannot go and experiment. But I have a nice family who do support me in terms of whatever I do, let it be the degree which I chose. And usually people from middle class, they expect if you're getting a degree, at least if you're not working in an aeronautical company, let it be, you can work in some kind of a mechanical or kind of a whatever the job that suits whatever you have studied, near to that. But in my scenario, yes, there were few hesitations at the beginning, but I was lucky enough to make them convinced like this is what I wanted to do and this is what would make me happy. And this experimental thing, though it never 100% worked out on business, but the way I chose data to be a career term to be fruitful for me.
So, Ashwar, are you married?
No, Krishna, I'm currently single only.
So maybe you have more flexibility in making decisions, right?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to be like that.
So when did you complete your graduation? How many years of experience after your graduation you have so far?
Okay, so I completed my graduation in the year 2017, and right now I have an experience around 6 years post that.
So in 6 years, you tried three things, right? You did aeronautical engineering, worked in an airline company, tried entrepreneurship twice, and now you're a data scientist. I think it's a great trend to see in general that young professionals are trying multiple heads before you really settle on something, or maybe that will never happen. So this reminds me one thing that I noticed long back. So when I was in my first job with Infosys long back, and I went to US in early 2000. So my colleague who was sitting next to me was a guy who was roughly at that point of time about 55 years of age. And he was a musician. That's what he had spent most of his life. And then he took a programming course and became a software developer. So this was a very new concept for me that, okay, I'm young in my early 20s. This is my first job. And my team member is a person who almost like 50 plus years of age and doing the same programming work that I was doing, because he thought that, okay, music is great, but it doesn't pay him as much as he would expected it to pay. programming was a high paying job, so he learned it and became a programmer. So I think this is great to see this trend is coming in India also, that you from entrepreneurship to data scientist, maybe you can try something else also in life. As long as you grow, that's great. So that's a great trend to see. So when you see your background, I'm sure many of your classmates, or both from your engineering school as well as from your high school, they might have got into one area and they're sticking to that particular area. So when you meet with your friends in general, how do they look at their transition? Do they see that, okay, you're trying with various things, or they caution you that, okay, Ashwar, why are you trying? Why are you playing with your life and career? Better stick to one thing. Otherwise, you might be left behind. How do your friends see your career transition?
Okay, so there are two things in this. One is, as you said, there could be few people who would stick to their domain and they want to, though they are not getting paid or they don't have a good role, they stick to that. Sometimes it might work out. But for me, I usually, if it's not fit for me, I'll not be there. So I'm a kind of a person who wants to be a betterment of myself, like a version today would not be the same tomorrow. So it is something like that. And yes, I do had a few questions and arguments with my friends in terms of career, because at the beginning, when I was working with airline, they asked me to join IT at the beginning itself. But I was not convinced to join IT because I was pushing myself whether I was able to get or land a job, whatever I was looking into in terms of the aeronautical sector. But once I got an idea that this would never work out, okay, let's move. So whenever I get this feel, let's move, I'll just move like that. That is my instinct. And that is what the mantra for me right now. Whatever the instinct I'm getting it, I'm able to prove myself, okay, fine, whatever you have decided is correct.
So I think that's really great to hear. See, if you look at in today's market, there is a lot of news about entrepreneurship, right? Like, paper is full about so many successful stories. But at the same time, if you take a step back and we realize that mostly what you hear about is successful businesses, right? People who have become already gone to a certain stage. A lot of people try, but they don't end up. It's like a restaurant, right? I've seen a lot of people who students when they graduate and they come to cities, they generally go and eat outside, and they go in successful restaurants which are well running. So they get this thought that, okay, we can also start a restaurant that will make food related to their area, and they'll be successful. And you'll be surprised to know that it's not a successful business anywhere. There's a data about New York City that thousands of restaurants open up every year and thousands of them they close. And such a big city with so many people going out and eating. Same happens everywhere. The reason it happens is that it's not very easy to build business, because one is that your interest in that particular area, but business also requires a lot of different aspects of understanding. There's a sales, marketing, customer service, forecasting demand, and so on and so forth. So a lot of people are getting tempted to do that, and they want to try their hands on entrepreneurship, but they have various constraints. Sometimes they don't have capital. Sometimes it's very difficult for them to convince their family that, okay, they're going to leave their current job where they're getting paid every month to try their hand on entrepreneurship. So let's say if somebody comes to you who has a very similar kind of background, middle class family, already has a job, but wants to try something else, and they want some tips from you on how can they convince their family. What kind of pointers you can give it to them? Because it's also important that while there are a lot of chances of failure, it's good to try. Once you try and do it, at least you have the satisfaction that, yes, I wanted to do it, I did it, whether I'm successful or not, but at least I experienced it firsthand. So what tips you'll give them to convince their family?
Yeah, the first and foremost, what I'll tell is, let's not bring in success at the beginning. Let's assume, what if you're not succeeding, and how the impact it'll be on your side. Okay, so that is something people have to think, because you cannot become Ambani overnight and within a period of month or something like that. Okay, so what if you're not gonna succeed, and how will it impact? This is something people are not understanding it, because they will always think, okay, it's good to be positive, but at the same time you'll have to think at the negative ways also. Don't mistake me if I'm talking negative things, but these are the things that is affecting more and more entrepreneurs moving forward. Understanding and getting things is fine, but implementing things is a different way. So you'll have to, whatever the ideologies you are getting inside, you'll have to implement, though it is a hardship. You'll have to prove them And then at the beginning, as you said, family will not support, even your friends will not support. There could be few days which I personally got into this. I was left all alone because I chose this way. So never be afraid to be alone, to work alone, because that is something people, even Jeff Bezos, when he started Amazon, he was working alone at the office. And
Yeah.
this is how huge businesses start. So people will never have to be afraid of being left alone. That is just the beginning of your journey. And when you're getting further into your journey, you will get people, whoever has left you alone, along with people who would be supporting you as well.
No, great point, Asfar. You made broadly two big points, and I completely agree with it. First point is that don't always be over optimistic that if you start, you're going to be successful, right? Because if you have lesser expectation, maybe it will be a good place because there are so many unknowns in the business. I completely agree. In fact, I can tell you with my experience of last 20 years that I've hired so many individuals across various roles, both India, US, and many other countries. I can tell you that if I today get two profiles of individuals who have a pretty much similar education background, maybe they have worked in similar kind of companies, somebody has tried entrepreneurship versus somebody has not tried entrepreneurship, I'll prefer person who has tried entrepreneurship. Because see, as an entrepreneur, while you try things and you don't end up successful, what you still walk away is the great experience of making things work, right? I think I'll also tell this audience that if you're thinking about doing, just go ahead and do it. Even if you're not successful, the experience is going to be worth it, right? So that's one great point. I completely agree. Second point that you made, that when you start, everybody will discourage. And that I've seen, especially if you look at friends, they say, okay, you are making a bad decision by leaving something that is stable and trying something new. Now, along with the self-belief, you also need to become lucky at some point of time. So I can also say that most businesses who eventually end up becoming successful, something or else works out for them. So if you are starting and for you it's not working, you should not get disheartened. Maybe there's always a next time and something better is waiting for you. So that's really a great point. Now, as far I think we talked about a lot about entrepreneurship and your journey. Let's move to now data science part. See, data science has gained so much of importance in last few years, right? It's considered to be the best possible job that one can get. So help our audience understand that, is it really so great? Everybody wants to become a data scientist. And everybody gets excited about the growth prospects, the salary growth. They also like that, okay, you can bring insight that helps company make decision. All that is great. But is it really fun working as a data scientist? Or maybe some part is fun, but still there is a lot of day-to-day routine work that you have to do, which is get another job. How do you see your current role?
Yeah, many people, they think when you Google the recent highest paid job, you would either be a data scientist or a data analyst, something that is comes up with data. Okay, so
Yeah.
people, they are pumped up with, okay, fine, if you become a data scientist or a data analyst, you'll be getting huge payout. It is another job wherein like you'll have to do your duties. And there could be hardships, there could be fun, there could be challenges. And yes, data is fun, data is challenging, data is more insights. And data would be something like in the future, it will never die off because this is a start of an era. And I don't think so it has an end.
Great point, Ashfar. So knowing you, like your personality, that you always are questioning the status quo, started with one thing, moved to another, now you're doing your third gig. What next for you? Like, are you going to be like seeing yourself in the current role for a long period of time, or you're already trying to identify what more you can? For example, I see a lot of people who are data scientists or who have a career in data, who have worked in a couple of years. They are now thinking about AI because AI has suddenly made all of us think about our role, our existence in general, a different way of looking at their current responsibility, their current roles, and in general, the current impact that they're creating through their work. So, how do you see AI in your work?
Okay, this is the recent trend, like people are hesitant or in a stage where whether AI could replace their job. Yes, to some extent, it might replace some of our roles, but it is not completely. You cannot write off humans in terms of AI because humans are humans, AI are AIs. Right now, if you would ask me, yes, I am supportive to AI because I want myself to be more productive, and I see AI as a tool to be more productive than what I am doing right now. So you'll have to differentiate it. And yes, AI is the future. And I'm really happy that we are in a generation where we are experiencing this kind of a trend or kind of a change in the current existence to what we see in terms of technology. Yes, AI is something like I would be taking up more in towards my job as well.
Got it. Are you learning AI?
I'm learning AI, but there is something like it is very basic, or I've just started off.
But see, my view is that AI is definitely the future, and this is the future of data. I'm sure at some point in time you have to learn, but still, there's no hurry. The key thing is that you should not stop your learning. Go anywhere
Exactly.
that suits your budget, that suits your style, that suits your lifestyle, that suits your schedule, but don't stop learning. So that has been my message to anyone who contacts me. So Ashfar, you played various roles: aeronautical engineering, entrepreneur, now data scientist, and there are like successes and failures in each of your journey. So now that you are enjoying your new work as a data scientist, is a very, I'll say, one of the most in demand roles that we can think of. How are your parents viewing your journey? Like, how do they feel proud? They think that you should go back to entrepreneurship, that you're not that successful, but still the potential was maybe much higher than what you're currently doing. So tell me, how's your family looking at your current role and your current position?
Yeah, they are, I would say they are relieved more than happy because I found a way somehow after struggling through all these hardships. And they, as parents, would always be happy when their child is doing something extraordinary or achieve something in whatever he or she is doing. And that is in terms of family. And coming to my friends, at the beginning, I was telling them, okay, fine, at least now I'll do this course and let me see. And the reactions was usually they don't want me to do this because whatever I was doing in business, okay, that is fine, right? Why do you want to change it? But post whatever I have gone so far, I had a reverse reaction stating that few of my friends wanted to have a referral in terms of the data wise. And I even referred a few of my friends to Simplilearn as well because they wanted to shift their career from whatever they are doing in terms of moving into data. So I was happy because I was doing something meaningful. In that way, people can also do the same thing, replicate it, and then achieve greater heights.
No, that's really great to know. So thanks for sharing that story. I'm sure parents will be proud because at least I agree they're more relieved because they know that you have found your calling. So that's really great to know. So Ashwar, now you spoke about your family, you spoke about your friends. If you have to give a suggestion or an advice to a younger self of you, somebody who's just coming out of the college, what would that be?
Don't be hesitant to make mistakes. That is what I would do because the mistakes you do is something that is the experience to learn something. I would say don't be hesitant to do mistakes and also try to experiment in a way that doesn't affect you mentally because there could be few people. What they do is they overstress themselves and then they lose it all the way. So I would say take your risk in a calculated way and make sure like at the end of the journey you remain happy though you're succeeded or not, but because you at least have a tried on that. And then make yourself clear like this is what you're gonna do and this is what I would be if even if it is not happening the way I wanted.
No, those are all great points, but if I have to add, I'll just add only one point that the best time to experiment is when you are young
Yeah.
because you have nothing
Yeah.
to lose. The only
Yes.
thing that you get, in fact, when you lose, also you win experience. So try various things till you settle in something that really gives you joy. And it's proven across the world, across the industry, that people become successful by doing things that they really enjoy. So great point, Asfar, and thank you for sharing that with the audience.
Yeah, thank you, Krishna. It's been a pleasure to have spoken about this because this is a platform which would reach more people and that would be helpful for our generation, whatever the youngsters do, because there might be few confusions here and there, and this would be much more crystal clear for at least for few of the people. If it's going to reach them, I'll be really happy for that.
No, definitely, as well. That's our goal. See, we see so many successful people whose podcasts are available, and people try to get inspired by them. But again, there are different kinds of people. There are some people who are very successful. Not everybody can get there because of various reasons. Some in control, some in not in a person's control. But there are stories like you where people can relate to it and they can try to achieve that. So I think that's what we want to promote. That everybody is special. Everybody has abilities. Everybody, if they start questioning their ability, there is much more they can achieve than what they think they are capable of, right? So that's our goal here that we are promoting. It was great speaking to you on As Simple As That. It's a platform where we share stories about common people, but who had an uncommon journey. So thank you, audience, for listening to Asfar Stories. If you liked a part of the story, if you got inspired, if you got made motivated, please do share with us. and we'll bring more such stories as we go along. Thank you.